Hello and welcome to next part of SAP RAP Unmanaged Scenario Series. So in today's episode, we will be looking into actions with parameters. So far, we have already seen the actions that we can perform. For example, setting the status and all those stuffs. Okay. And those are without any parameters. So generally, whatever we have seen also in our last example is to just shuffle the status. Okay, in today's session we will look into uh, how we can call the actions with parameters. We'll understand how we can actually uh, initialize the different values in the parameter, and finally we will implement an action in our current application with passing some default values. Now, let us first understand how what are actions with the parameters, right? The action with parameters will allow us to default some of the parameters that we can pass as as a default value, so that those values can be used in order to fill in the values that we want to change. Okay, non-standard operations often requires this kind of thing. Like for example, in our case, we are always shuffling. But for example, let's say if we have 10 records with different statuses, and now we got to know that okay, these 10 records out of these 10, 7 we need to actually make them active. So we have to actually, if we go and use our last action, some of them out of the 7, if they are in active mode, they will become inactive, and inactive will become active as per our last action that we have implemented. But if we want to make all the 7 as active or all the 7 as inactive, we don't have any functionality as such. In such cases, the parameterized actions are really helpful. Not only that, for example, let's say if you want to change few of the values in the particular BO instance, uh, then again this will be also uh, you know easy for us to go and implement it. Now, in order to pass these parameters, we should always define a abstract entity. Okay, root is not needed, but an abstract entity will also work here. Okay, what are the advantages? It reduces the manual entity, minimize the errors, and ensures that the data is consistent. Okay, now how many ways you can actually define your values for these particular parameters? Now, what SAP provides is it allows you to actually go and fill in a default value to your parameter. Now, what does that mean? It means that this parameter value, right, you can default it with certain values that you want to actually utilize. And how this is allowed, this is done using a UI.default value annotation that will give the default value for that particular parameter element. In our case, the first space name will be given as a default value to the first name of this particular abstract entity. Similarly, you can actually directly map with the entity. Okay, and to do that, you should always default the value with hash and in bracket element of reference entity colon and the entity name, the entity element name, not the entity name, but the entity element name that you can actually pass. And finally, it also allows you to actually define a complex business logic that will call a function that will allow you to code all the complex business logic. For example, let's say you have around six of or four or five parameters, and that four or five parameters, depending on certain criterias, you have to set it the values, right? In those cases, this default complex logic, business logic will come into picture. And how we do it is we actually call a function that will actually go and default these parameter values. This particular approach enriches to dynamically determine the values based on the calculation, data queries, and conditions, as I have told you. Now, how this complex logic we should go and define, that is been defined using a function, and that function should actually start with either a get defaults for or get def lts for. Exactly the same, G capital, D capital, F capital, guys. Okay. I don't think it is needed because, yeah, that's okay. So get defaults for or get def lts for, and then a particular some name. Yeah, here I'm giving contact parameter. Okay. And how we can call this action? We will call the action using action create, and so far we were giving result one and dollar self. Now we are calling it using a parameter clause and passing the abstract entity name here. Okay. Using this abstract entity name, the parameter will be filled in. Okay. And then it will be implemented. So let us now get into the system and see how we can actually implement this whole logic. Okay. So for us, we will go and implement our action with a same same thing, because I don't have anything else now, but the concept is going to be applicable for multiple fields as well, guys. Okay. So whatever I am showing, just grasp the concept. If you know the concept well, then everything is easy. You can implement the same concept the way you want based on your um, requirement. So let me now go to Eclipse and start coding the action. So let me now go to Eclipse first. Okay. And for us, I have already gone and created one abstract entity. Okay. Let me just comment this out for now. Okay. What abstract entity I have created? I have created an abstract entity. Okay. With again, right click, go define data element and all those things. But this time you should select an abstract entity. Now define abstract entity. I have created a status parameter which will have active flag in my uh, value. Okay. And that will be defaulted with a default value of X. Okay. And active label is equal to uh, some label I'm giving, end user label. Okay. And first thing that we go and define is this way. Okay. Now, second thing that we need to go and define is we go to our behavior definition, and that behavior in our behavior definition, we already have the set status. Using the same functionality set status, we should now go and define our another action with parameter. Okay. How we are going to define? We will say action. This time I'm saying set, for example, let's say change field values, parameter, and my parameter zmaks underscore a underscore status underscore param. And again, it will give me the result back as dollar self. As soon as I do this, okay, action, I'm getting a warning that change field values is not implemented, right? Let me go and activate this first, and then again, quick fix by pressing Control 1. You can actually go and add that method to our behavior pool. It is implemented a change field value. Let me go and show you the definition. It says change field value for modify importing keys. For the change VLAN, we have to pass the result back, similar to what we have in the set status. Same way we have to go and do that, right? Now, once we have actually done this, definitely we need to go and add this as a button. Every button should be actually added, right? So that button you have to go and add here to our asset. Okay. I'm saying change fields, field values, change field values. And here my action should be exactly the same action that we have here. Change field values. Right? Okay. Control F3. Once that is done, the next step, as you might have seen, is to actually go and use this particular action also in our projection behavior pool, projection behavior definition. Use action, and this time I will say change field values. Control F3. Okay. This is what we have done so far. Okay. So let us understand what we will be getting when we actually go and uh, implement these changes. Let me now go to our browser and just refresh this to see what are the things that we are getting. Now, so far we only had the change status. Now, this time when it refreshes, let us see what we are getting. Okay, and you see now we have the change field value as well. This is exactly similar to what we have. Now, what happens is, let's say if I go here and if I click on this change field value, it is giving me that active with default value as ticked in. I am saying, okay, it is yes already. Now change it to no, change the field value. Okay. It came back here. It showed me, oh, the value is now no. But if I go back, the value is still yes here. Okay. First of all, it should not, action should not go to uh, the object page, right? And that is why, because we have not yet implemented our method. So let us now go to our Eclipse and start coding that particular action. And how that is being coded? Similar to what we already have for our previous action, right? So where is my class here? Okay. First thing is definitely we'll have to go and read, right? It should be read first, right? To change the value and then you can change it. Now, how we are going to actually, okay, before that, let us just understand what we have here, part of our F2. Okay. You see the result keys is now of different types of change field values, and the derived type, it will have a parameter of our structure. Okay. The structure that we have. So this parameter with structure will give me the only active ABAP boolean as of today. Okay. We have to remember that our keys is not the normal key. It comes with a parameter now. and that parameter will be of our abstract entity. Whatever fields we have in the abstract entity, we will get the values here. Okay, so how we are going to change now? So we are going to change now those fields using first understand where we will be getting. So let me first go and define a ls params. Okay, and that will come in my ls params in my keys in first record in percentage param, isn't it? Okay, once I get my parameter values, the next step for me is to read the entity instances where we have to go and change these values. Okay, now for that, again, read entities, again, read entities of the MAKS I contact you in local mode. Okay, entity. Why I'm typing it again? We already have it here. Let's go and copy it from here. By now, you should be well versed with the read and modify EML. Okay. Now, how we are going to modify? Again, the same thing. Let me come here, copy this, and now we are going to actually change the active field. Now, this time, there is no condition of changing it. Rather, it will directly come from ls params dash active. That much easy it was. Full stop. Right? So now what we have done? We have just read the values for the contact with whatever keys, whatever entities is been selected on the front end. In this case, it will be only one. But if we go and create a draft functionality, we will get a checkboxes where you can actually do the action on multiple records at the same time, right? Uh, Once we actually make this a draft version 4, then draft is mandatory, right? And since we have not implemented draft, I am not showing it here, but the same code will actually work there as well. And finally, we have to just send that data back to the front end, okay, by just passing the parameter value back of the result structure with the change values. Okay, control F3. Now, once we have done this, okay, let us now go and see what and how these changes are impacting our things. Okay, so let me now go to my browser again. Okay, and this time let me refresh and try to change the field values again. Now, why I have kept this change field value, I'll show you in a bit. Let me go and say, okay, change field status. Now this time it is yes, I'm marking it as no, changing the field status, and you will see that it has made this active status as no here without going to our um, object page. Okay, because unless and until you don't implement the method and you don't send the data back, it will actually move to the object page. That is how REP framework works. Okay, and we have to confine in the way it is been actually framework is built, right? Now once that is done, why I have actually used this change field value is that action is not going to work only on one parameter, it can take multiple parameters. Okay, so let us now go to our Eclipse and see how we can actually implement that to our uh, you know uh, to take multiple input parameters. So let me now go to my Eclipse and show you what are the changes that we need. First thing is that this parameter, right now this time I am actually taking my telephone number also as one of the parameters, correct? And if you have to pass the reference key of an entity using uh, the value that you already have and then ask the end user to change it, this is the way, guys. You have to pass element of reference entity colon and the element name as a default value. It is in quotes, single quotes, okay? Element of reference entity colon the reference entity name. I'm just passing the telephone, which is exactly the name of the entity element of my contact. And users here I'm saying telephone number, for example, control F3. As soon as I go and do this, what will happen in my contact entity now? In this parameter, let me show you that also quickly. F2 here, and in my key values, this is a derived parameter of, and now I am getting telephone as well, right? So this is the things that you will be getting in your parameter value. So these parameters now will hold two fields. One is the active, as usual we have seen. The second one will be telephone. Now I have to change the telephone also, isn't it? So here again I will go and say data dash telephone is equal to ls params dash telephone. Okay, that's it, isn't it? But will this change, guys? Will this change the value? No, it will not, because update will, we are saying with the fields, you are just updating the active value, not the telephone number, right? So it will not, people often make mistake here. You just go and add the data here and change the value, but you are not updating it here. So here you have to say telephone as well, and then it will go and update it. Okay, that much easy it is to actually have multiple values or multiple parameters as a input parameter when you are actually defining the um, action with parameters. So let us now go to our application and see how this whole thing works. Okay, let me come here and refresh it. And this time I am going and I have to change two values now. Okay, it will allow me two values. I say go, and this time you see this is no. First name, the first record I'm checking, changing the value. The telephone number is 1139833323. That is being shown here. Okay, and I am just taking the making it as active, and then I am just changing it 9820020200, and I am just clicking on this change value, and you see it will now go and change the values to telephone number as well as active. Okay, so both values are now changed with the same action. Okay, so far we have seen that change values we were actually doing only for one field. Now with parameters you can actually change the values of multiple fields with the values that you want to go and do it, right? Does that mean that the action can only change one value and action with parameter can change multiple value? No, you can actually go and change your telephone number in set status also, guys, but this time it will be a default value because you don't know what value you have to change, right? So default value, if you want to change, you can still use the normal action, change the value. We can see that also if we want. So let me now go to my Eclipse and show you that as well. So here, let me just come back here. I am saying, okay, active as well as telephone here as well. Update the telephone as well. At this, I am doing it in my set status. Okay. And one more thing here. This one is done. And now I am saying one more data dot telephone. And this time I don't have any value, right? I am just going and saying, okay, 98111 98111. Okay, this is the value that I will be putting in. Now let us go and see what happens to our application with that change in our value. Okay, so let me go to my application, our browser, and this time again refresh. And now this time I am not using the change field value, rather I am actually going and using the set status, right? This change status. And you see it is 98200 20200 with active yes. So this will actually, this button will make this inactive, and now it should also change the telephone number. Okay. And you see 98111 98111 is being changed. Okay. So this is how the action works. Okay. Parameter only allows you to go and define different parameters, right? With that, I would like to stop here. Hope the normal action, the action with parameters, you might have already understood. Okay. If you don't understand that, I will try to post the code also. You can go and um, try to implement it yourself. See how best you can actually give the justice by modifying different types of uh, field values that you want to change, and then accordingly just code in. Okay, hope this series is actually helping you guys. If yes, I would like you to please do like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon so that you get notified when a new video is being uploaded. Please do share it to all your colleagues so that they also get benefited. With that, I would stop here. Thank you and happy learning.